The salt spray stung Columbus's face, a baptism of sorts in the salty tears of a world about to be irrevocably changed. He stepped onto the beach of Hispaniola, the fine white sand, a deceptive carpet masking the blood that would soon soak it. Sunlight, a cruel mockery of divine grace, glinted off the gold crucifix clutched in his hand. A symbol of salvation, soon to be twisted into a justification for slaughter. He planted the standard of Castile, a flagpole driven like a spear into the heart of a living, breathing culture. He claimed this new world for God and King Ferdinand, oblivious to the chilling irony of dedicating a paradise to conquest. A new world, a new Eden. Or was it perhaps the genesis of a hell on earth? Was this the shimmering dawn of a glorious empire, the fulfillment of biblical prophecy, a land overflowing with riches and the promise of salvation for untold souls? Or was it, in truth, the opening scene of a horrific drama, the first terrifying chapter in a story of unimaginable violence, a nightmare unfolding beneath a gilded veneer of pious pronouncements and avaricious dreams of gold? History, the victor's polished narrative, often paints the age of discovery in vibrant, romanticized hues, spinning tales of intrepid explorers charting unknown waters, bravely expanding the horizons of human knowledge. We are presented with images of courageous adventurers, driven by noble curiosity and an unquenchable thirst for knowledge. But what if we dare to shift the perspective? What if we tear down the tapestry of fabricated heroism and expose the raw, bleeding truth beneath? Spain Empire. Imagine the beach from the viewpoint of the Taino people, indigenous to this land for countless generations, their ancestors' bones buried deep within its soil. Imagine their bewilderment, their mounting terror, as these strange, pale-skinned men, the Spanish conquistadors with their thunderous weapons and insatiable greed, arrived on their shores, claiming ownership of something that was never theirs to take, something sacred, something beyond price. Suddenly, the carefully constructed narrative crumbles, doesn't it? The heroic explorer shrinks into a grasping intruder, a harbinger of doom. The pristine paradise, once vibrant with the rhythms of nature and the harmony of a peaceful people, transforms into a bloody battleground, a canvas splattered with the crimson stain of broken lives. The Spanish conquistadors, fueled by a fervent, self-justifying belief in their own righteousness, embarked on a relentless campaign of conquest across the Americas, a plague of steel and fire sweeping across the land. They carried the cross in one hand, a symbol of love and redemption, and the sword in the other, a chilling paradox, a testament to hypocrisy that would define the bloody centuries to come. They spoke of spreading the gospel of Christ, of bringing the light of enlightenment to the savages, those they deemed unworthy, those whose very existence challenged their warped worldview. Yet their actions screamed a very different story, a story etched in blood and tears, a story of forced conversions, brutal enslavement, and the systematic extermination of entire cultures. How could a nation, a culture, claiming to be the vanguard of Christianity, the embodiment of civilized values, become so inextricably intertwined with such unspeakable barbarity? How did the whispered justifications of God, gold, and glory become so tragically, so irrevocably intertwined with the screams of the dying, the lamentations of the bereaved, the death rattle of a world vanishing beneath the iron heel of conquest? We are told of the glories of the burgeoning Spanish Empire, the unimaginable wealth it generated, the vast territories it controlled with an iron grip. But at what unimaginable cost can an empire built upon the foundations of conquest, an empire sustained by the relentless exploitation and unmeasurable suffering of an entire people, ever truly be considered civilized? Can we, in good conscience, celebrate the glittering achievements without acknowledging the horrifying atrocities, the mountains of skulls upon which this empire was built? Can we truly understand the complexities of the present, the lingering echoes of injustice that resonate through time, without confronting the darkest, most blood-soaked chapters of the past? The story of Columbus landing on Hispaniola is not the grand narrative of discovery. It is merely the prologue to a far more sinister tale. The seeds of destruction were sown on that fateful day, but the true horror, the systematic dismantling of entire civilizations, the bloodshed on an unprecedented scale, had yet to begin. It didn't begin with Columbus, the man who stumbled, blind and arrogant, upon a world he couldn't comprehend, a world he would ultimately destroy. It began with a man named Cortez, a man who would unleash a reign of terror, a whirlwind of violence that would forever stain the pages of history, a man whose name would become synonymous with conquest and cruelty. What was the driving force behind this ruthless ambition? What dark secrets fueled his insatiable hunger for power, his willingness to wade through rivers of blood to achieve his twisted goals? The answers are waiting in the shadows. They will emerge soon. Part 1: Gold Fever, the obsession that drowned a continent in blood. Imagine a room overflowing with gold, shimmering mounds reaching from floor to ceiling, blinding in their opulence. This wasn't a dream, but the ransom demanded by the Spanish conquistadors for the life of Atahualpa, the last Inca emperor. A king's weight in gold, they said, and more silver than could be carried. A ransom paid in full, a promise broken with brutal efficiency. Atahualpa, betrayed, was garroted, another life sacrificed at the altar of gold. This insatiable hunger, this all-consuming lust for precious metals, fueled the Spanish conquest of the Americas, leaving a trail of blood and destruction in its wake. But was it simply greed that drove these men, or something more? A fever of the soul, a sickness of ambition? The allure of El Dorado, the mythical city of gold, pulsed in the veins of every conquistador. This phantom city, shimmering just beyond the horizon, fueled their relentless expeditions. They envisioned mountains of gold, rivers flowing with nuggets, a paradise paved with unimaginable riches. The reality, however, was far more savage, far more brutal than their gilded fantasies. Instead of streets paved with gold, they found an empire rich in culture and tradition, ripe for the taking. The Inca, with their intricate social structures and advanced understanding of astronomy and engineering, became not partners in discovery, but victims of a rapacious hunger. The conquistadors, blinded by their golden mirage, stumbled upon not a shimmering city, but the Inca Empire, a civilization possessing vast quantities of the very metal they craved. This encounter, this collision of worlds, marked not the dawn of a new era of understanding and cooperation, but the beginning of a systematic plunder, a brutal dismantling of an entire continent. From the sun-drenched coastal plains to the breathtaking heights of the Andes, the Spanish thirst for gold reshaped the landscape, leaving scars that remain visible even today. The echo of their greed can still be heard in the whispers of the wind through the abandoned ruins of once great cities. Deep within the heart of Bolivia, the Cerro Rico, the rich mountain of Potosi, pulsed with the lifeblood of the Spanish Empire, silver. Here within its dark and dangerous depths lay a seemingly inexhaustible supply of the precious metal. But this wasn't a gift. It was extracted through the brutal system, a form of forced labor that decimated the indigenous population. Imagine families torn apart, men forced to work until their bodies broke, their lives reduced to backbreaking toil in the suffocating darkness of the mine. For every gleaming piece of silver shipped to Europe, a river of blood flowed in the Andes. Can you even begin to fathom the scale of human suffering, the sheer magnitude of despair that fueled the European appetite for opulence? Picture the glittering gold adorning Spanish churches, the silver filling the coffers of European monarchs, all bought with the lives of countless indigenous people. This wasn't just resource extraction, it was the systematic dismantling of a civilization, a holocaust of culture and tradition sacrificed on the altar of avarice. Does this resonate with you? Does this chilling tale of exploitation and greed sound familiar? This relentless pursuit of wealth, this insatiable hunger for more, mirrors the driving force of our modern world. The relentless pursuit of profit, the constant expansion, the exploitation of resources and human labor. Aren't these the echoes of the Spanish conquest, reverberating through the centuries? We celebrate entrepreneurship, innovation, and economic growth. But at what cost? Are we too blinded by a modern-day El Dorado, sacrificing human well-being and the health of our planet on the altar of ever-increasing wealth? Are we doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past, forever chasing a shimmering illusion? The Spanish conquest wasn't just about gold and silver. It was about power, control, and the reshaping of the world in their image. It's a brutal and bloody chapter in human history, a stark reminder of the dark side of human ambition. But were the Spanish uniquely evil in their pursuits, driven by a singular thirst for gold unlike any other empire? Or were they simply better documented, their atrocities preserved in the meticulous records they kept, while other empires' sins faded into the mists of time? We'll explore this unsettling question in this video, where we delve into the less discussed, equally horrifying atrocities of other empires throughout history. Prepare to confront the uncomfortable truths that lie buried beneath the polished surface of historical narratives. Don't miss it. Part 2. What if everything you've been taught about Spanish cruelty is nothing more than a meticulously crafted lie? A whisper campaign that echoed through centuries, shaping our perception of an entire nation? Ever heard of the Black Legend? It's the chilling narrative of Spain as a uniquely brutal and oppressive colonial power, a story woven with threads of conquistador atrocities, the chilling whispers of the Inquisition, and mountains of plundered gold. But what if this widely accepted historical account is less about factual accuracy and more about politically expedient fabrication? Stay with me for the next few minutes and we'll unravel a story far more intricate and far more disturbing than you could possibly imagine. The Black Legend paints a vivid, almost cinematic picture, doesn't it? Imagine blood-soaked conquistadors, driven by avarice and religious zeal, carving a path of destruction through the heart of the Americas. The insatiable greed of gold-hungry explorers, leaving a trail of ravaged lands and enslaved peoples in their wake. The terrifying specter of the Spanish Inquisition, its long, dark fingers reaching across oceans to stifle dissent and enforce religious conformity. It's a powerful and compelling narrative, one that's been deeply ingrained in our collective historical consciousness for generations. But where did this insidious story originate? And perhaps more importantly, who profited from its dissemination? Imagine a split screen. On one side, we see the Spanish Empire, warts and all. Their flaws and brutalities are exposed, meticulously documented for posterity. On the other side, lurking in the shadows, are their rivals, England, the Netherlands, and other burgeoning powers, hungrily eyeing Spain's dwindling dominance. Consider the implications. Who stood to gain the most from portraying Spain as the ultimate bogeyman, the epitome of colonial evil? Could the Black Legend be a carefully constructed piece of propaganda, a potent weapon deployed to justify the ambitions of emerging empires, eager to seize the reins of global power? We'll delve into the very heart of this historical controversy in just a moment. Prepare to have your preconceptions challenged. Let's talk hard numbers. The Spanish colonial era undoubtedly witnessed a catastrophic loss of indigenous life. Disease, forced labor, and brutal acts of violence all played their tragic roles. But were the Spanish uniquely cruel, inherently more barbaric than their European counterparts? The Black Legend emphatically asserts this, painting them as uniquely monstrous. Yet a closer, more critical examination of the historical record reveals a chilling paradox. The Spanish, despite their undeniable transgressions, were meticulous record keepers. They documented their actions, their conquests, and even their most horrific atrocities, leaving a detailed, albeit disturbing, paper trail. Their rivals, however, often preferred the convenience of a bonfire. Their records conveniently went up in smoke. Think about the implications of this. The Spanish meticulously documented their actions. Others chose to erase theirs. Does this abundance of evidence make the Spanish more culpable, or simply more honest? Does a lack of documentation truly equate to a lack of wrongdoing? The English, for instance, were hardly benevolent conquerors. Their colonial ventures, particularly in North America and later in India and Africa, were marked by brutal land dispossession, ruthless economic exploitation, systematic cultural destruction, and often outright genocide. Yet the pervasive Black legend conveniently glosses over these uncomfortable truths, strategically focusing its accusatory lens almost exclusively on Spanish misdeeds. Why this selective amnesia? Why this deliberate distortion of historical reality? Consider the geopolitical context. The 16th and 17th centuries were a period of intense rivalry and cutthroat competition between European powers, a desperate scramble for resources, territories, and ultimately, global dominance. As Spain's power began to wane, England and the Netherlands were poised to fill the vacuum. A tarnished reputation for Spain, a carefully cultivated image of barbarity and oppression, served their purposes perfectly, providing a convenient justification for their own colonial ambitions and casting them in a more favorable, even heroic, light. Suddenly, their own acts of violence and exploitation could be reframed as a necessary response to Spanish tyranny, a righteous crusade to liberate the oppressed from the clutches of a monstrous empire, a masterful stroke of propaganda. The Black legend became a potent weapon in this high-stakes geopolitical game. It was strategically disseminated through pamphlets, books, engravings, and even theatrical productions, skillfully shaping public opinion and demonizing Spain on a grand scale. It's a fascinating, albeit disturbing, example of how history can be manipulated and weaponized to serve political agendas. A stark reminder that the stories we tell ourselves about the past are often shaped, distorted, and even fabricated by the exigencies of the present. But the story doesn't end there. The insidious legacy of the Black legend continues to resonate even today, subtly influencing how we perceive Spanish history, culture, and even national character. It's a cautionary tale about the enduring power of propaganda, the critical importance of critical thinking, and the urgent need to constantly re-examine and challenge the narratives we inherit. It's a story of power, rivalry, deception, and the devastating impact of carefully crafted lies that can echo through generations. So, was the Black legend historical fact, malicious fiction, or a politically expedient lie? The answer, as with most complex historical questions, is nuanced and multifaceted. But one thing is certain: by understanding the origins, motivations, and intricate mechanisms behind this enduring and pervasive narrative, we gain a deeper, more nuanced, and ultimately more accurate understanding of the past, and perhaps even a clearer perspective on the complexities of the present. Stay with us, because in the next section, we'll explore specific examples of how the Black legend was meticulously constructed and strategically propagated, and examine the devastating consequences it had on both Spain and the indigenous populations of the Americas. We'll uncover the hidden agendas, the whispers in the corridors of power, and the human cost of this enduring historical fabrication. Part 3. Picture this: galleons groaning under the weight of plundered silver, cascading into Spanish coffers like a glittering waterfall. Mountains of treasure ripped from the heart of the Americas, enough to make kings salivate and emperors envious. Spain, the sun never setting on its vast empire, seemed invincible, destined to rule the world. But a cruel irony lurked within those gleaming veins of silver, a poison that would slowly corrode the empire from within. This wasn't a tale of riches and glory, it was a tragedy of abundance, a case study in how too much wealth can lead to devastating ruin. It's the story of the resource curse, and Spain, drowning in silver, became its poster child. Over the next 5 minutes, we'll dissect this astonishing economic suicide, unraveling how the very treasure that fueled Spain's imperial ambitions ultimately brought the mighty empire crashing down. From the legendary Potosi mines in Bolivia, a silver tsunami washed over Spain. The sheer volume of this precious metal flowing into the Spanish economy was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Imagine a modern economy suddenly flooded with trillions of dollars, without the infrastructure, the diversified industries, or the sophisticated central banking systems to absorb the shock. The result? Economic chaos. Prices exploded. Inflation, a silent thief, began to devour the foundations of Spanish prosperity. The very currency meant to represent wealth became debased, its value plummeting as the market choked on the overabundance of silver. Imagine walking into a bakery and discovering the price of bread has doubled overnight, then doubled again the following week. This was the agonizing reality for countless Spaniards. While the royal coffers overflowed, the common people struggled to afford basic necessities. The cost of living spiraled out of control, leaving a bitter taste of poverty amidst the nation's apparent wealth. The irony was brutal. The influx of silver made Spanish goods more expensive on the international market, crippling local industries and creating a vicious cycle of decline. Why bother producing goods when you can simply buy them cheaper from abroad, using the seemingly endless supply of silver? Spanish artisans and manufacturers, once the pride of the nation, were driven out of business, further weakening the domestic economy. The silver, intended to be a blessing, transformed into a devastating curse. Story of Spain's silver-fueled downfall is even more complex, more tragic. Blinded by the glitter of immediate wealth, the Spanish crown neglected crucial investments in its own infrastructure and human capital. Why bother building factories, fostering innovation, or educating the populace when you can simply plunder the riches of conquered lands? This short-sightedness, this dangerous addiction to easy money, had devastating long-term consequences. While other European nations invested in burgeoning industries, scientific advancements, and skilled labor, Spain remained trapped in a self-destructive cycle of plunder and inflation, a gilded cage of its own making. This wasn't just an economic catastrophe, it was a human tragedy. The Spanish Empire, fueled by silver, became a machine of exploitation, grinding down its own people as ruthlessly as it exploited its colonies. While the aristocracy reveled in opulent luxury, financed by the endless stream of silver, the common people suffered. Farmers were driven from their ancestral lands, skilled artisans saw their livelihoods vanish, and the gap between the rich and the poor widened into a gaping chasm. The image of a wealthy nation teeming with impoverished citizens, a disturbing echo that resonates through history, became the stark reality of Spain. So, the next time you hear romanticized narratives of Spanish conquistadors and their glittering treasures, remember the dark underbelly of the story. Remember the crippling inflation, the economic stagnation, the human suffering that painted a grim picture behind the facade of imperial grandeur. The silver of the Americas, meant to be a source of unimaginable strength, became the symbol of Spain's decline, a testament to the corrosive power of unchecked greed and short-sighted policies. It's a cautionary tale for the ages, a stark reminder that true wealth lies not in the mere accumulation of resources, but in the wisdom, foresight, and ethical responsibility to manage them effectively. But a crucial question remains. Could Spain have avoided this fate? Could they have broken the curse of silver? We'll explore that very question in the next section, in just 5 minutes. Part 4. No Spanish Empire means no tacos, no chocolate, and maybe no United States. Let's rewrite history. Imagine a world map without the vast swathes of red and gold that once signified the Spanish Empire. No conquistadors, no galleons laden with silver, no Inquisition reaching across continents. Sounds peaceful, right? Maybe not. The absence of such a dominant force would create a power vacuum, a ripple effect that would reshape the world as we know it. Are you ready to dive into this alternate reality? Think about it. The very language you're reading now, influenced by Spanish words borrowed into English, might sound subtly different. Would words like tornado, mosquito, or even chocolate exist in our vocabulary? What other linguistic ghosts would haunt this altered timeline? And what about the cultural landscape? From the vibrant rhythms of flamenco to the sun-drenched architecture of Latin America, the Spanish Empire left an indelible mark. Without it, what cultural forms would flourish in its place? Indigenous traditions, perhaps, evolving along undisturbed paths? Or something entirely new, born from the clash of other empires? Let's get to the nitty-gritty geopolitics. The Spanish Empire controlled a vast portion of the Americas, shaping its destiny for centuries. Without their influence, would the Aztec and Inca civilizations have continued to thrive? Imagine the Aztecs, unburdened by conquest, developing their own unique path towards industrialization. Would they have built flying machines powered by obsidian and steam? Or perhaps the Inca, masters of engineering and agriculture, would have created a vast, interconnected empire spanning the Andes, rivaling Rome in its grandeur. Hold that thought for a moment, because it gets even more intriguing. What if the void left by Spain was filled not by other European powers, but by a resurgent Islamic empire? Imagine minarets rising above the landscapes of the Americas, the call to prayer echoing across the Amazon rainforest. Would Islam become the dominant religion of the New World? This isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. Remember, Islamic empires already controlled vast territories, possessed advanced knowledge of navigation and trade, and had a history of exploration that predated Columbus. Could the Americas have become a bridge connecting the Islamic world to the East, a new hub of trade and scholarship? The what-ifs keep piling up. What if the British, French, and Dutch, no longer competing with Spain, focused their colonial ambitions elsewhere? Would Africa have been carved up differently? Would Australia have been colonized earlier? Would a different European power have risen to global dominance? Perhaps the Portuguese, riding the waves of their earlier maritime successes, would have built a vast empire stretching from Brazil to India. Or maybe a new, unforeseen power would have emerged from the shadows, rewriting the rules of the game entirely. Now let's bring this back to the United States. Would it even exist without the Spanish Empire? The very land that became the USA was in large part shaped by Spanish colonization. Florida, California, Texas, these states bear the indelible mark of Spanish influence. Without Spain, would these regions have fallen under different control? Would the United States have been smaller, larger, or perhaps not exist at all? Imagine a North America dominated by indigenous nations, French colonies, or perhaps even a vast Russian empire stretching down from Alaska. The possibilities are dizzying. The butterfly effect of a missing Spanish empire is immense. Everything, from the languages we speak to the nations that exist, could be radically different. This isn't just a thought experiment, it's a glimpse into the delicate tapestry of history, a reminder that even seemingly small events can have colossal consequences.